Good morning, everyone. Yeah, very good morning. So, shall we begin? Yeah, today's topic is the same. That is how to use or what are the various comparisons of plug compatible environment or equipment, how to use a benchmarking, what are the various effects, what are the various comparisons that is made for the benchmarking. So, shall we begin or wait for others? All right, wait for others. Yeah, Joseph, intimate me with the help of the chat whenever you want to start the session. All right. Okay. So let's start the session. In the last class, we have started with the chapter number 11, sorry, chapter number 10, that is the last chapter of your this module, that is the hardware and the software concepts. And we have studied some topic in the last class as well as the last class, that is what is benchmarking, how we can select the software and how we can select the hardware, what are the various criteria, or we can say what are the various rules, regulation to specify or selecting the, or hello, are you able to hear me? Hello, hello, are you able to hear me? Okay, so what are the various criteria for selecting the hardware and the software? So first one is the objectives, that is the first part. Then introduction of this one. Then hardware selection, determining size and the capacity requirement. What is the main size and what is the capacity requirement? Then computer evaluation and the measurement. What are the various computer measurement evaluation technique that is used in, yeah, that is used in the hardware and the software requirements. That includes the benchmarking, synthetic programs, comparisons of the benchmarks, and the plug compatible equipment. What are the various financial factors that may include the rental, lease, purchase? What are the various maintenance and the support features that is used? That include the, what are the various services? What are the various responses? What are the various options that is available in the in-house system? What are the options that is available in the out-house system? Then there is a vendor selection, which vendor will be used for taking out, or from which vendor we take out the hardware concepts or hardware materials. Then software selection, which software will be required, whether we are requiring for the C, whether we are requiring for the NetBeans, Java, what are the various software that is required for this one. Then criteria for the software selection, what are the various criteria, how we can select the software. The main content is that the main criteria is that depend on the requirement. What is the requirement of the user that is required for the, that is the criteria for the software selection. Then performance evaluation. After the performance evaluation, there is a summary and questions. So these are the few topics, or we can say these are the materials, or these are the titles of the chapter number 10, that is the last chapter. So what kind of hardware and the peripherals are required? How we can judge the hardware and the peripherals? How the hardware is selected? What is the criteria for the selection of the hardware? How the computer evaluation and the measurement will be concluded? What are the various methods by which we can conclude the hardware and the software selections? And how the vendor selection is done? What are the different criteria in which the vendor is selected for the content? How the system performance evaluation will be done? So these are the various objectives that arrives in this chapter for the hardware and the software selection. Now, my question is, any doubt in these objectives, because we are going to discuss these objectives in detail. So any doubt in any we can say the word, factor, line, anything, any point? Yeah, there's a difference between the computer evaluation and the measurement. Evaluation means how the computer performs. What are the various drawbacks? What are the various pros, cons of the computer? And measurement means measuring the computer capability, how it works, what is the speed of the computer. That's the main difference. Evaluation means identify the pros and the cons of the computer. Measurement means identify the exact value for the measurement. That is the computer measurement. So how that will be done, how measurement will be done. Then what is the benchmarking? Benchmarking, we can say that is a tool used for making the selection of the hardware and the software. Yes, when we talk about the vendor selection, that means from which vendor we purchase the material for the manufacturing, that is the hardware material. What are the various different, or how we can select the vendor, that is how the vendor selection is done. In the same way, how we can select the software, what are the various criteria. So one is from the vendor selection for the hardware, one is a criteria for the software selection. And then how the system evaluation performance or the system performance software is developed or will be done. Joseph, this is very, we can say, silly question. What is the meaning of peripherals? You don't know what is the meaning of peripherals. You are about to end this course in September and you don't know what is the peripherals. Yes, Larry, tell me what is the meaning of peripherals? Yeah, it is a combination of the input and the output devices. Very good, Larry. So when we combine the input and the output device, that may be input device, that may be an output device. That is not we can categorize the devices into the output device and the input device. There is no. But the common device that is attached to the computer, that is work for the computer, that is known as the peripherals. I agree with you that is external device, but yeah, that is a part of hardware also. Any other doubts in these objectives? Anyone? Next one is the introduction of this one. What is the meaning of selection? What is the meaning of hardware? What is the meaning of software? That is the introduction. So the major element that is in building the systems is selecting the compatible hardware and the software techniques. What are the various hardware and the software? And the kind of hardware and the peripherals required is to be determined. Determine in the sense we have to evaluate what kind of hardware and the peripheral that is required for the determination for the usage. And the suitable software has to be selected from out of the available resources, out of the available source software and the hardware techniques. An experienced analyst will explore various options regarding it. Regarding it means regarding the hardware and the software selection. Hardware and software selection begins with the requirement analysis. That means it begins with the requirement phase. It begins with the first phase that is known as the requirement analysis, followed a request for proposal and the vendor evaluation. That is what is the request, how we can request for the hardware or how we can request for the proposal and the vendor evaluation. And the final system selection initiates the contract negotiation. What is the contract negotiation? How we can compare the price, and what are the various maintenance agreements, what are the various vendor selections, what are the various acceptance criteria, and what are the various similar issues that is used or that is used in developing a system or building the system. So in simple terms, if I compile each and every line, that means it is the responsibility of the analyst to explore what are the various software requirements, what are the various hardware requirements, and how we can compare that software and the hardware requirements, and how we can get the better result or the better output or the better input for the system. That means a better hardware as well as a better software for developing the system. It's a responsibility, a full responsibility of the analyst, system analyst. Now, one basic question to each and everyone: who is a system analyst? I'm saying from last few days, system analyst, system analyst. Who is a system analyst? That is a machine, that is a person. Yes, that's correct. That system analyst is the person and he or she is responsible for developing a system. These 2-3 words on one line is sufficient for the definition of the system analyst, nothing else. That means he or she is responsible for developing the system, for building the system, that is known as a system analyst. And one of the important point is that it starts with the first phase, first step, that is the requirement analysis. Now come to the next part, where how to determine or how to get the hardware selection. What are the various techniques? What are the various we can say the criteria for the hardware selection? Now, in day-to-day life, when we select a system, is a serious and the time-consuming activity. We have to search over the internet, what to do, how to do, what is the material, what is the configuration, everything we are going to check on the internet. So that's very time-consuming, we can say, and a serious issue, because once we get the system, once we get the hardware, there is no issue to change or replace the hardware. So it's better to get the hardware in such a way that there is no money wastage, there is no time wastage. Time, yeah, it's a time consuming, I agree, but get the better hardware for the system, because until and unless you are not getting the better hardware for the system, everything is gone wrong. First phase is also wrong, second phase, and at last the output is also wrong. That means everything from starting to the ending till the implementation, everything is gone into the vein. There is no usage of getting the or building the product or getting the output from the system. That's why it is saying that selecting a system, selecting the hardware is a serious and a time consuming activity. But it also depends on the vendor. We trust on, for example, we trust on one vendor, and yes, and he or she supplies a wrong hardware for the system. How we can judge what is the internal part, what are the various, we can say the internal categories, internal chips that is available in the hardware. That's also a probability whether this is that one is the correct, but in mostly cases, that is in 99% cases, hardware is correct for the, if we purchase the selection, if we do the selection over the internet by searching. So selecting a system is one of the serious and time consuming activity, but many systems are self-selected based on the vendor reputation. We see that, yeah, this is okay. This is IBM organization. Everything is okay. Hardware is okay for this one. But yeah, that is fine, but we have to explore over the internet. So many systems are self-selected based on the vendor reputation only or other subjective factors. Instead of the factors which are to be considered should be determining the equipment size, capacity needs, financial consideration, and the acquisition methods. These should be kept in mind for the hardware selection. What is the equipment size? What is the capacity that is required? What are the financial consideration? That means how much money is required for the hardware, whether the company afford that money for building the or for getting the hardware or not. What are the various acquisition method? That means what are the various factors that is responsible for the that hardware selection. Yeah, these are the factors that you can explore or that you can do within the points. That is point number one is determining the equipment size. Then second point is capacity needs. Then financial consideration. That means determine the financial consideration and the acquisition method. What is the acquisition method for the hardware selection? Now just do one thing. This is a base. Read out this one for 2 minutes, and if there is any doubt, then please ask the doubts. Objective, introduction, and the hardware selection. Yes, everyone done with these topics? Any doubts, anyone? Financial consideration means in money terms, what is the money required for the hardware selection? For example, comparing the prices of different hardware on by the different manufacturers over the internet. So what is the budget of the organization? Yes, financial consideration means money respected terms. So let's begin with the next one, that is determining the size and the capacity requirements. So with computer, that is ranging from the small microcomputer to the large mainframe computer. There are multiple types of computer that is available that range from the small microcomputers to the large mainframe computers. There are multiple options that is choose from when selecting a system. That means there is a lots of the system that is available that range from the micro to the mainframe. Multiple options are available. You have to make a selection criteria. Yeah, yes, tell me. Okay, so there are multiple options that is available. There are multiple computer that is ranging or that is available from the microcomputer to the large mainframe computer system, and the number of options to choose from when selecting a system is obviously very large. Even within the lines of the single manufacturer, there are many different models. So single manufacturer also have a various capacity, various different models that is available, and different considerations from which we have to select the data, from which we have to select the computer systems. And how then does the analyst determine which system to use when a new computer is to be acquired? That means which is the system that is acquired, that is used for the new system that is used. So it's the responsibility of the system analyst to determine which system to be used when which system will be used when a new computer is to be acquired. And the starting point in an equipment decision is the size and the capacity requirements. So the starting point means the first step in equipment decision process is the size and the capacity requirement. What is the size of the what is the size that is required for the computer system, and what is the capacity, that means the configuration requirements of the equipment decision. And one particular computer system may be appropriate, for example, for one particular requirement for one particular systems for one workload, and inappropriate for the another. It also works, it also do. So system capacity is frequently the determining factor. So what are the various considerations? What are the various features that is considered? That includes the following. What is the internal memory size? That is the system capacity, internal memory size. Then cycle speed of the system for the processing. That means what is the speed in megahertz, gigahertz? What is the speed of the system for the processing? Then characteristics of display and the communication components. What are the various communication components, how we can or what are the various characteristics of the display and the communication components. Then types and number of auxiliary storage units that can be attached. What are the various external devices, what are the various auxiliary storage unit, that means external devices, secondary memory that can be attached with the computer. That is the types and the number of the auxiliary storage unit that can be attached. Then system supports and utility software provided or available. What are the various support? Like for example, there is a disk defragmentation, disk cleanup. These are the utility programs that is available. So what are the various programs that is available with the computer that is kept in mind when we determine the decision for the systems? So one is the memory size, then cycle speed, communication component, that is a networking, auxiliary external storage units, and the system software that is provided. Frequently, when we talk about the software that needs the minimum configuration required. For example, when we talk about a particular program that runs on a microcomputer that requires only 4 megabytes, that is only MB is required. But nowadays, when we talk about the i3 or the i5 or i7 configuration, there are capacities that is available in the GBs. So a list of the feasible candidates or system will exclude all the system regardless of their attractiveness that do not have, that cannot be easily configured to have a memory of at least 4 megabytes. So as per this example, we have to go with the 4 megabyte because our requirement is for the 4 megabytes. And all the system has some limits that is designed for, and that limit may or may not be affected in a particular selection decision. For example, some works for the synchronous fashion only, synchronous decision, that means synchronized decision, not the asynchronous decision. And if the system has other attractive features and will not be used for the data communication, then synchronous feature may be the little concern. There is no usage of the synchronous if the system is not work well, that is not attractive, that is not well used for the data communication. In the same way, when a particular microcomputer is limited, for example, 5 ports for connecting the terminals, and the printer, yes, and the printer may be too restrictive in a teleprocessing system that is designed to link 23 sites together through a terminal and the communication sites. Now, next is the software needs. Just wait for 2 minutes. So next one is what are the various software needs that often dictate the hardware requirements, such as the internal memory sizes, communication ports, disk capacity, and the ability to use the magnetic tapes. That is a software need that often, or that is usually used, or that is often dictated or used with the hardware requirements. And vendors are the reliable sources of the configuration requirements. So when we talk about the vendor that provide the manufacturing or the hardware components, they are the reliable sources of the configuration requirements. They can also provide the information on the minimum configuration requirement that is needed to use their software properly. What are their minimum configuration requirements? How we can configure with the minimum requirements that is needed to use their software properly. Now, trade newspaper and the magazine provide the regular distribution of the information about the hardware and the software requirement. And in addition to this, there's a subscription that service that offer the information on operating the specifications. These services, which cost $100 on a, we can say, yearly basis, provide the monthly updates and the telephone assistance for the computer operations, as well as the user comment, that is how to use with the trade newspapers and what are the various magazines that provide the regular distribution of the information about the software and the hardware requirements. And when we talk about the auxiliary storage capacity, that is determined by the file storage and the processing needs. What is the file storage? If it is more than the 4 MB as per this example, then we have to use the auxiliary storage external memory within the computer. So that is determined by the file storage and the processing needs. And to estimate the disk storage needed for a system, the analyst must consider the space needed for each master file. Because master files mean the main file, we can say, and there are multiple. Yes, like a server, you can say. That's not a server, but we can relate with the server. That is a master. So auxiliary storage capacity is generally determined by the file storage and the processing needs. To estimate the disk storage needed for a system, the analyst must consider the space needed for each master file. So there's a disk storage that is also needed for a system. The analyst must consider what are the various spaces that is needed for each master file. What are the various space for the programs and the software that include the system software and the method by which the backup copies will be made. So whenever the analyst estimate the disk storage, he or she must consider the master file, that what are the various master file in a program, in a software. What are the master file means the data that is permanent for the file. For example, if I'm talking about the C language, there are multiple master stream files that is available with the, or that is going to store in the master files. Then the space for the program, what is the mean space or how much space is required for the programs, and the software, including the system software, that is including the operating system also, and the method of the taking the backup of the copy, that is we are going to take the backup in case any damage. So that is also related with the, or that is also covered in the disk storage. And when using the flexible disk on a small business system, the analyst must determine whether the master and the transaction files will be maintained on the same disk. Because like a server and the clients, master file is one of the master files, that is a server, and the multiple clients are the transaction files that have to be updated on a regular basis whenever a new transaction will occur or will arrive in the master files. So whether the master and the transaction file will be maintained on the same disk and on which disk the programs are stored. There's the backup considerations as well as the file sizes that also guides the decision how many disk drives are needed. Either we are going to make the drives for the C, D, E, F, and how many drives are available, what is the capacity that is available for the file storage or the storage capacity. And the configuration should keep scope for the backup copies of all the data. And the configuration also requires that there is a scope for backup copies, that we have to arrange only the 2 drives and there is no factor, there is no usage of the backup. That is very important in every computer system, that is the backup copies. Now, any doubts in the memory size? No. Any doubt in the limitations or limits, that is the meaning of the networking, synchronous features, asynchronous features? Anyone, any doubts? Then what are the various software needs? That is, what are the various hardware requirements? What are the various software requirements? Then what are the various auxiliary storage capacity? That is external storage. What are the various factors that determine the backup copies of the data? So there is no doubt, right? Now my question is, why we use the backup or why we use the backup of the data, or why we take the data as a backup? What is the main usage of taking the data as a backup? What is the advantage we can say? Anyone can answer? Larry, you said that backup means taking the backup. So what is the usage? I agree with you that taking the backup is known as the backup of the backup in the computer. So what is the usage of taking the backup? Why we are taking the backup? What is the advantage? Yeah, something is correct about the answer of the Joseph, that yeah, this is the perfect answer. Why we use a backup? So that we have to, or we are going to recover in the future if there is any system crash, anything that happens with the system. So we have to, or we are going to recover the data from the backup storage devices. That is the main reason, that is the main advantage. There is no data lost. Everything is available. Whatever the data stored in the computer, everything is available with the help of the backup storage from the or with the use of the recovery. Yes, with the use of the recovery techniques, we can get the backup data. Now, what is the main limitation of using the backup? Yes, I agree with your point that the storage, yeah, it takes more memory of the computer. I agree, but the advantages are the more than the disadvantage. So we have to take the backup of the data. So in case any system crash, any unexpected error will arrive in the system, so we have to, or we are going to recover the data from the backup storage devices by the recovery techniques. Now let's move to the next part. That is, what is the meaning of the computer evaluation and what is the meaning of the measurement? So computer evaluation means evaluating the system. Evaluating means analyzing the system. Analyzing means check whether everything is okay or not. So evaluation means analysis of the system or analyze the system. So comparisons are often made among the different computer systems on the basis of the actual performance data. Using the benchmark data generated by using synthetic programs is more effective than simply comparing the technical specifications. So when we talk about or when we use the benchmark data that is generated by the different synthetic program, that is more beneficial. Yeah, that is more useful than simply comparing the technical specifications. Now let's see what is a benchmarking. Benchmarking is a tool or the application of the synthetic programs to evaluate the, or we can say the calculate the actual processing work that is handled by the computer system. So it's an application like the MS Word or the Excel, that's the application. In the same way, this is the application or the tool of a synthetic program to evaluate the actual processing work that is handled by a computer system. And the benchmark programs permit the summation of the mix of the jobs that are representative of the user's projected overload. So what are the various users that is you projected for the overload? That what are the various representatives of the mix of the jobs that is affirmates the summation of the benchmark program. And they also demonstrate the data storage equipment techniques and provide the opportunity to test specific functions that is performed by the system. So what are the various what are the various specific functions that is required that is performed by the system? And through this technique, the limitations of the equipment becomes apparent early in the acquisition process. So what are the various equipment that is required? What are the various limitations of the equipment that is required for the data storage that is required early in the acquisition process? Sometimes the user organization will also insist that the results be attached to the sales contract, formally stating that a specific number of transactions can be processed in a given period of time. That is the benchmarking. The response to an inquiry that will be given within the stated amount of time and so forth. That means whenever we are using the benchmarking, that everything is as per the rules, everything is as per the regulations. The benchmark program permits the submission of the mix of the job that are representative of the user that is projected overload. Yes, Joseph, I said it is an application of the tool. For example, if I'm talking about the API in the programming, do you remember about the API? That is the application programming interface. That is also application that is used to run the program, executes the program. In the same way, benchmarking is also application of the synthetic program to evaluate or emulate the actual processing work that is handled by the computer system. That also specify the number of the transactions that can be processed in a given period of the time. Responses to a system, responses to an inquiry. Next point is that the benchmark can be run in any type of the system environment. So the benchmarking is not platform dependent. It is a platform independent that can be run on any type of system environment that includes the batch and the online job processing, online job streams with the users linked to the system directly or through the telecommunication methods, either through the telecommunication method. Common benchmarks are the speed of the central processor with typical instructions executed in a set of the programs. What are the various instructions that is included in a set of the programs, as well as the multiple streams of the jobs in a multi-programming environment. And the same benchmark run on a different or several different computers. It is also possible that same benchmark will be run on several different computers that will make apparent any speed and performance difference that is used for the central processor. That means the central processor is a main processor that handles each and every benchmark that is executed in a set of the programs, as well as a multiple streams that is used in the client server architecture or used in the multi-programming environment. And benchmarks can also be centered around an expected language mix for the programs. That means we can use any type of language. That may be a C, C++. That means any programming language we can use with the application, with the tool of the benchmark. And the response time for the sending and the receiving data from the terminals is an additional benchmark for the comparison of the system. So what is the response time? What is the sending and the receiving of the data that is from the terminals? That is an additional benchmark for the comparison of data. And sometimes, rather than running the actual benchmark jobs on a computer system simulators are used to determine the performance differences. What are the various performance differences? How we can execute the simulators? What are the various methods that is used with the performance differences? And in commercial system simulators, the workload is defined in terms of, say, how many input and the output operations are available. What are the various input operations and what are the various output operations? How many instructions are executed or utilized? And in which order or the order in which the work is processed. What are the various specifications that are fed into the simulators? What are the various data that is showing about the characteristics of a particular equipment, such as the instruction speed, channel capacity, and the read-write times. In the same way, when we talk about the simulator, that is in turn processes the data against the operating characteristics and preparing a report for the expected results if the computer are used well in time. So if the computers are used, so we have to, or the benchmark have to prepare the reports. Like in any organization, some employees have to prepare the report at the end of the day. In the same way, benchmarking have to prepare the report either weekly, either daily, either monthly. Then then it's the responsibility of the system analyst to be changed. Which model will be used for the system? What are their new set of the performance data that is to produce for the comparisons? What are the various system characteristics? So each and every data is given by the benchmarking program. The time and expense of running actual benchmark program on a computer are of the concern to the analyst. So this is the same line that is saying right now that it's the responsibility of the system analyst. Everything is responsible for the system analyst. The time and the expense of running the actual benchmark program on a computer are of the concern of the analyst and vendor alike. Therefore, the use of the commercial simulators is an attractive alternative. So we are going to use, or system analyst is going to use a commercial simulator that is we can say the better approach for the better approach for the alternative, or better alternative for the attractive look. That is the usage of the commercial simulators. Next is, what are the various synthetic programs? That is, I'm not going to start right now because 2 minutes left for the class. Yes, so there is no usage. Now, my question is one more question to you. Yeah, tell me first of all, what are the various doubts? Now, my question is, why we use a benchmark? What is the advantage of the benchmark? How it is effective, or how it is helpful for executing the programs? Yeah, benchmarking is used as a simulator. That I agree. There are multiple read-write times that is used in the benchmarking. There are various provisions by which that in turn processes the data. What are the various data that is against the various characteristics? How to prepare the report of the expected results if the computer are used. Characteristics, yes, right. Commercial system simulators, workload of a system that is defined in terms of the input and the output operations. What are the various work that is to be done? Specifications that stores the data, that makes the processing as a useful. Particular equipment, yeah, correct. Instruction speed, channel capacity, read-write times, expected results. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, one of the main is that the time and expense of running the actual benchmark program are on computer are of the main concern of the system analyst and the vendor also. That is, what is the time that is required? What is the expense that is required for benchmarking programs? Therefore, we have to, or the analysts have to go for the commercial simulators only. That is used for the commerce. Now, any doubts, anyone regarding these topics? And any term that is not clear to you? Anything? So we are going to start with the next topic. What is the next topic? That is a synthetic programs, how to design the synthetics program in the next class. That is in the tomorrow's class. What are the various synthetic programs? How we can design that synthetic programs? So that's